What is up, book nerds? I'm Rachel Bateman. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the Authortube Newbie Tag. Now, if you've not seen one of these videos already, this is a list of 13 questions that are geared toward introducing me to the Authortube world and letting y'all get to know a little bit more about me and my writing and my process. I adore watching these videos. I think they're a great way to get to know each other a little bit better, and I think there's no better way for me to start my own channel than to do this video very first. This tag was created by Jenna Streety, who I will link down below. I believe there is a 2.0 version of the tag out there, but I'm going to be answering the original questions today. Let's go ahead and jump right in with question number 1. How did you find out about Authortube? It wasn't called Authortube back in like 2009 to 2012, but during that period of time, there were several authors who were posting regular short videos on YouTube about writing and life in the industry and just being an author in general, and I loved watching them. Jackson Pearce in particular had a great channel that was super enjoyable to watch. If you are not familiar with Jackson, she is the author of the Sisters Red series, As You Wish, Purity, and several middle grade books, all of which are super fun, and you should definitely check them out. It's been a decade, but some of Jackson's videos are still my favorites on YouTube. 2 in particular, which are both parody music videos. One is called Everybody's Free to Buy a Laser Printer, and the other is Writer's Block. I am going to link them down below. They are old videos, but they are 100% worth the watch still. More recently, about 2 years ago, I was getting ready to launch Second Star Books, which started with a monthly YA book box focusing on a debut novel. And our very first book we put in a box was Brightly Burning by Alexa Dunn. So as I was reading the arc and planning and curating the box, I came across Alexa's YouTube channel, and that just led me down this proverbial rabbit hole of Authortube and learning about more and more authors and these wonderful channels and the information they're putting out there. So I've been watching for a couple of years now and just soaking it in and really enjoying this community. What genres do you write in? I primarily write young adult contemporary. I do like to toy around with other genres. When I work on screenplays, I super love writing horror. There's nothing more fun than writing a slasher movie. I enjoy mystery and thriller a lot, but my main focus and where I write most often and where I feel most comfortable is young adult contemporary. What is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? Category is easy. That's young adult. I just went over that. As far as point of view and tense, I don't really have a preference. I do tend to write a lot of first person. That works really well in the kind of books I write. But if something calls for third person, or if I feel like the book will work better in third person, that's what I use. It's kind of the same thing with tense. My last couple projects have been present tense. I like the immediacy. I think it's fun to write that way. But I've written several things in past tense, and if a book feels better in past tense, that's what I write. Basically, when I start any project, one of the first things I do when I get to the writing is feel out how I think the story is best told. I do some writing in past tense, I do some in present tense, I play with point of view, I figure out what feels best for each particular book, and I go from there. Are you a plotter, pantser, or plantser? Okay, I could have like entire videos on this, and I probably will at some point, but I am a hardcore plotter. Every year, Second Star Books puts out a NaNoWriMo survival kit, and after our first year doing that, I had a lot of emails from people who got it saying, you know, the goodies and the fun stuff, that is great, but we would really like if you could help us figure out how to write the book. So last year, I spent months writing a plotting guide that breaks down how I plot a book. The thing ended up being like 130 pages long. It is ridiculous, but I love it. So anytime I start a new project now, the first thing I do is print that out for myself and start filling it in. My outline for the last book I wrote, the one that I am currently editing, was about 100 pages long. There seems to be this idea that when you plot that intensely, it takes away the joy and discovery of writing. And this probably should just be a whole video of its own, and maybe someday it will be. But I have found that to be so not true. So this book that I just wrote and I'm editing, I spent 8 months planning it, y'all. 8 months before I started writing. 100-page outline. 4,000 words into writing, a character I've never considered walks onto the page, and he ends up being a major character through the whole book. About 30 or 40,000 words into writing, I realized that 8 months of plotting and 100 pages of outline and I have the wrong love interest the whole time. Because as I was writing, I discovered things that I didn't during the outlining. So I guess that kind of, I don't know, maybe you would consider that making me a plantser because I do a bit of both, but I feel like I can't spend that much time plotting and have that intensive an outline and not just claim the plotter title. Are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? I'm going to assume that that published in the middle of that question means traditionally published. I am a hybrid author. I have both self-published and traditionally published. My first novel, 99 Days of Laney MacGuire, I knew about 5,000 words into that book that I wanted to self-publish it. I never queried agents. I never went to publishing houses with it. I knew I'd be taking the indie route, and I did that from the start. I really enjoyed the process of doing that. I had a lot of fun with it. My next book, Someone Else's Summer, I went traditional with. Agent, Big 5 publisher, movie option, the whole 9 yards. I also really enjoyed that process. I am, for several reasons, focusing on my traditional career now, but I did really enjoy self-publishing, and I could see myself doing it again in the future if I have the right project for it. What publishing company, literary agent, and/or printing company are you represented by or use? There's actually a second part to this question that's geared toward people who are not yet published, but I want to address it, so I'm going to go ahead and read and answer it. And it says, if you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house and/or literary agent? Here's the thing, y'all. This idea of like a dream agent and a dream publisher, it stifles your career. I have friends who had their lists of dream agents and publishers, and you know what? They got their dream agent and that agent took them to their dream publisher and their career fizzled out and tanked. It didn't do anything for them. I also have author friends who had this list of dream agents and dream publishers, and they focused so hard on those dreams that they let other great opportunities pass them by because they weren't what was on the dream list. I am represented by Liza Fleisig of the Liza Royce Agency. My book is published through Running Press, which is part of Hachette. Liza Fleisig was not my dream agent, y'all. I found her through a Pitch Madness contest, and before that contest, I had never heard of her or her agency. But she really is the perfect agent for me. We click, we work well together, and she is so enthusiastic about my work and does such wonderful things for my book and my career that I couldn't imagine being in this industry without her. It's the same thing with Running Press. I wasn't familiar with their catalog. They barely had a YA line when they signed me. They were rebranding and relaunching that line. My wonderful, talented editor, Julie Matisic, I had never heard of until Liza came to me and said, hey, Julie's over at Running Press. I think the two of you would work well together. I think you'd really like her. We should try submitting to her and see what happens. They weren't my dream agent and publisher, but you know what? They are the best agent and publisher for me. They have done great things for me, my book, and my career. I couldn't imagine having a better team working with me. So while it's good to be knowledgeable of what agents are out there and what agents are selling and what agents represent the kind of books that you write, this idea of having a dream agent or a dream publisher, that's a hindrance to your career. Okay, sorry, I am moving on. Tangent over. What Authortube related videos can we expect to see on your channel? My videos will primarily be focused on the writing and the publishing. Writing, I will be doing videos on plotting, pacing, characters, the mechanics, and like the nerdy nitty-gritty of writing. I'll be talking about novel writing as well as screenwriting and what I've learned and am learning about that process. On the publishing side of things, I might talk about self-publishing occasionally. Not only have I self-published my own work, but for years I worked as a freelance editor, an editor at a small press, and a book formatter for other indie authors. So I've been kind of in the indie publishing game for a very, very long time. But, as I said earlier, my focus now is on traditional publishing, and especially Big 5 publishing. So most of my publishing videos will be geared toward that journey and the kind of behind the scenes things that happen in the industry. As a whole, we as authors tend to be kind of tight-lipped about the industry. We tend to not talk about advances and royalties and money. We don't talk about things like whether we've earned out or how sales are going. And part of that's because we also don't ask our neighbor what his salary is. But part of it is because there's become this industry expectation that we keep quiet. And that can be so frustrating for new authors who are trying to learn because the stuff they need to learn isn't readily available. Now, there are authors out there who are doing a lot of work to kind of break those barriers down and be more transparent. I mentioned that Alexa Dunn was one of the first I started watching on YouTube, and her channel is great for that. If you're interested in traditional publishing and you're not following her, you should be, because she does a great job breaking this down. But that's the kind of content I will be providing as well, just adding another voice to that and another experience to this traditional publishing world. When did you start writing? Like a lot of authors, I wrote a lot as a kid, but then high school came and I was super science focused and I was super busy. I was a basketball manager. I was on the drill team, like doing batons and high kicks and stuff. And I just got too busy. I didn't write for high school or most of college. After college, one summer, I got very into the idea of becoming a screenwriter and worked really hard at that, wrote a lot of really, really bad screenplays. Then in 2007, I had a shoulder surgery that ended up being a way bigger deal than we thought it would be. I had to be plugged into the wall for 2.5 weeks. I was on all kinds of drugs. And these drugs made it so I couldn't sleep. So there I was, not sleeping night after night after night, doped up on narcotics, just drugged out of my mind. And what a great idea. Why don't I pull out my laptop and start writing stories? Now, as you can imagine, they were really, really bad. Drugged writing, not good writing. But it reminded me how much fun I had with writing in the past. And I got back to writing and doing that more. And it was probably about 2 years after that that I thought to myself, you know what? I want to do this. Not just play with it, but really do it. I want to be an author. I want to publish my books. I want to put them out there for people to read. So I've been writing seriously for about a decade now. What was the first story you ever wrote? The first story I remember writing, and this is a super, super vivid memory, I was about 7 years old and I had one of those like Mead spiral notebooks and a pencil, and I was walking circles around my house, on the outside of the house, like front yard, side yard, backyard, side yard, around the house in circles. And the whole time I walked, I was writing and just filling page after page of this notebook. And what I was writing was really bad fan fiction of the old horror movie The Blob. I don't remember any details beyond that, but I vividly remember that I filled this entire notebook writing about The Blob. My mom is a phenomenal pack rat, so I had hoped that she had this somewhere, but I asked her a couple years ago and she had no idea where it was, and really, it's probably best that it was lost. What authors have inspired your writing the most? When I think of writers who've inspired me, two people come to mind immediately, and that's Sarah Dessen and Stephanie Perkins. Sarah, because when I was first filling out this writing thing and deciding what I wanted to write, I didn't write contemporary. I was writing a lot of paranormal, and it was 2009, and like Twilight was still huge, and Hush Hush was huge, and Fallen was huge, and all these paranormal stories were just like taking over the young adult world. And I was writing paranormal, and I had some ideas I really liked, and you know what? I still like them, but they just weren't clicking for me. There was something missing, and it wasn't the right thing for me to write. Now, at the time, I didn't read a lot of contemporary, but I did read everything Sarah Dessen wrote. And as I'd read her books, I kept thinking, if I could have this feeling with my books, I'll be successful. I wanted that. Not necessarily her characters or her stories or her setting, even though I loved all those, but what I wanted is the feeling I get reading one of her books. I wanted my books to give someone else that feeling. And that inspires me every time I write. I remember that, and I think to myself, can I evoke that kind of feeling in my readers? Now, Stephanie, aside from being a phenomenal writer, and I love her books, about a decade ago wrote a blog post. And if I could find it, I will link it down below, but it was a decade. I don't know if it's out there anymore. This post essentially said, hey, you know what? It's okay if you don't want to make your book more than it is. It's okay to write a light, fluffy romance, and it's okay if you write beach reads. Not everything has to be deep and multi-layered and have an intense meaning. It's okay if you want to write just to entertain. And it's almost embarrassing that I needed that blog post to be an eye-opener for me, because that's exactly what my struggle was to that point. I would write what I thought was a great story and I loved the characters, and I'd be like, okay, but where's the big meaning here? How can I make this more? What can I layer in to really enrich this book? And what would happen is I would take what should probably be about 3 different stories and shove them into one, trying to just layer all this depth and meaning. And it really took Stephanie saying, hey, you know what? It's okay. It's okay to not try to make your book more and just to write something you love and entertains people, for me to do that. Now, there's nothing wrong with those deep, layered, multidimensional books. I like writing them sometimes. But I needed someone to tell me there's nothing wrong if your book isn't that also. Do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you could find the time? Both? I have one night a week that I pack up my computer and my work and I leave the house and I focus for hours on nothing but writing. When I get out of the house, I don't have kids or a husband or animals to distract me. I can't see the disaster that needs to be cleaned or the laundry that needs to be folded, the dishes that need to be done. All those things that are at my house pulling me away from my writing, I leave them behind so I can focus. Now this year I actually joined a challenge to write something every single day. I have never prescribed the whole you have to write every day if you want to be a serious author. If you don't write every day, you'll never make it. That is crap and it's not how it works. That said, I'm looking for more consistency in my life and my writing, so I joined this challenge to write something every day. And I set a really low daily goal for myself because it's not about cranking out the words, it's about creating the habit and making consistency. That happens whenever I can make it happen. If my toddler happens to take a nap for the day, which is getting rare, I write during his nap. If he doesn't, I write after he goes to bed. Often I am writing 11:45 at night to 1 in the morning or whatever. The important thing for me doing this isn't the word count or how much I produce, it's creating the habit. So I guess I write whenever I can, but on a schedule? Does that make sense? Do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything out by hand, or do a blend of these? I write all my first drafts on my handy dandy AlphaSmart. This little device is the best thing that's ever happened to my drafting. There's no internet, so there's no distraction. I can only see a couple lines at a time, so I'm not constantly trying to roll back and fix things I've already written. It really helps me just go to the end and then fix afterwards, which for me is crucial to my drafting. I also like that it's super, super portable. It runs on AA's and they last forever. I've been using the same set of batteries in this for years and I've written so much on it, and it's nowhere close to running out of battery. After that first draft, I upload stuff into my computer. I will print it off, make notes handwritten on the manuscript, and then go back and tackle edits on my computer. Oh hey, there was more to that question. Let's answer the second half of that question. Where do you write in general? If I'm at home, I either write right there in my office or out there curled up on the couch. This is a standing desk here, so if I'm writing during the day, I will happily stand there and type. But if I'm not starting writing till almost midnight, I'm going to the couch. I want to be comfy with my laptop and just do my thing. When I write out of the house, there's a few places we go to a lot. I meet once a week, typically, with the Montana Mythcreants, which are my writing group buddies. We tend to go a lot to a place here in town that is like a combo coffee shop and frozen yogurt stand. We spend a lot of time at Denny's because they don't mind if you take up their booths for hours. All of Someone Else's Summer was written in the Hastings Cafe, which was the best place to write, and unfortunately Hastings went kaput and they are no longer. My very, very favorite place to write though, I can only do certain times of the year because I live in Montana and it gets cold here. But I love driving the back roads out into the country to the middle of nowhere, preferably somewhere that has no cell service and that very few cars are going to drive by. I pull over to the side of the road, pop a camp chair out the back of my Xterra, and I sit my butt in it and I write. And I'll sit out there for hours just listening to the nature sounds. There was one particular time where I was sitting next to a stand of trees and there was a big field to my other side, and I kept hearing these weird noises on the other side of the trees, and it was getting dark, and the next thing I knew, there were deer everywhere. And they're deer. They're not going to hurt me, but they were right up on me. And did you know that deer growl? My sister told me this once. She said, I was out in the woods and a deer growled at me, and we said, dude, you're crazy. It's not really a growl in the throat like other animals do, but they make this weird huffing noise at each other and it sounds just like a growling. And let me tell you, when you're out in the middle of nowhere, parked on the side of some road no one travels, and you listen to a lot of true crime, and you start hearing weird huffy growl noises on the side of the trees and you can't see what they are, it's a little creepy. But I wouldn't trade it. I love going out and writing in the middle of nowhere. I find it very inspiring and there is no distraction other than the deer. What are you most looking forward to now that you are part of Authortube? I think I'm most looking forward to just being a more active part of this community. I've been watching videos for a long time, I've been commenting on videos, and I kind of feel like I've gotten to know a lot of you and a lot of the creators in this community. And so putting my own videos out there and just being more a part of it is really exciting. I also just really like teaching. I've taught plotting workshops and writing workshops, and I really enjoy doing it. But the reality is, I live in the middle of Montana. I have small children. I can't travel a lot, so there's not a whole lot of opportunity to teach those kind of things. So YouTube just kind of feels like a natural extension, a way for me to get out there and share what I've learned and what I know about this industry. Okay, so that was my Authortube Newbie Tag. I hope you all learned a little bit about me. If you liked it, go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel so you can see my new videos coming out. I'm planning to post new content once a week. I thought about doing 2 or 3 times a week, but it turns out I still need time to write, so I'm limiting myself to once a week posting. If there's anything you would like to see me cover in a video, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I do have a list of ideas that I am going to tackle, but I like to know what people are looking for and what they want to hear about. If you have any questions about me or my books or writing in general, definitely leave them down below and I will do my best to answer anything I can. Thanks for watching, book nerds. It's been a blast and I will see you in my next video.